Thank you very much. And one more time, thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be the part of this event. And I hope that you will find my talk interesting and you will learn something new. So today I want to talk a little bit regarding serverless security and to be more specific, some attack vectors and some mitigations, how to protect against such attacks. So what are we gonna hear on this talk? First of all, we will go deep dive into serverless. So we will actually take a look into the servers that are behind of function as a service from the popular providers like Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. And then I prepared the story of Bob with three challenges that he has to overcome and what we can learn from those challenges. Um, Before we start, let me introduce myself. I work as a senior security consultant in Polish company called Securing. On a daily basis, I'm responsible for handling penetration testing as well as cloud security assessment. So natural for me was to research more the serverless security because very often the serverless security is also part of cloud security assessment. Some of my articles you can find on my Medium blog. And also, if you are interested in cloud security, then I strongly encourage you to follow me on Twitter or in LinkedIn. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, what is serverless? Let's imagine that our main character has his own blog. This blog is about cute dogs. There's nothing fancy on this blog. However, there is only static content using HTML, CSS, JavaScript eventually. But actually, there is no interaction with people in this blog. And one day, the owner of the blog, he thought that, well, maybe it's the time to get some money on this blog. So the main character created an idea to sell a course how to make your dog love you. Because we all know that some dogs simply don't like some people. So this course is specifically for them. Now, uh, there are few technical challenges that the owner has to overcome. So first of all, if you implement the buy button, then you have to somehow handle the payment, the confirmation of payment from the payment provider. Then, after validating the payment confirmation, you want to send automatically a link to this course to your customer. And finally, at the end of the day, let's say at 10 p.m., you want to have a daily report from your from how many of the courses have been sold during this day. If we use the monolithic approach, there are a few obstacles, like probably you have to refactor whole website, maybe move to WordPress, maybe other solution, but you have to research it. Then another problem is that you don't know how many people will be reaching your website daily. So you have to assume the maximum number of people coming to your website, to your blog, and based on just your assumptions, you have to choose some hosting plan, which will be never perfect. And finally, the last problem you have to solve is the maintaining your server. I mean, you have to handle the patch management, any network issues by yourself. However, if you use the serverless approach, you can be focused only on providing the functionality. So you can only give a code to do specific tasks like get confirmation of payment, send email to customer, or generate the daily report in 3 simple functions. To show you, those functions are officially called as a function as a service. And function as a service in AWS is represented by lambda function. So imagine the following scenario. You have the API gateway, and there is a listening endpoint on the API gateway, listening for upcoming connection from the payment provider with the confirmation of the payment, right? Then the upcoming request from the payment provider trigger an event, and the event triggers the runtime environment for your lambda function. Then you are using your lambda function, you are validating the confirmation of the payment if everything is okay, and if so, then send automatically an email with the URL to your course to your customer. And the other way how you can trigger the lambda function, the function as a service, is the time. So, for example, every day at 10 p.m., your lambda environment is triggered, and then invoked the lambda function that is generating a report, and then stores the report in the S3 bucket. Hope it is clear for everyone. So function as a service can be found in all main providers. So in AWS, it is called the AWS Lambda function. In Azure, it is the Azure function as a part of App Service. And in Google Cloud Platform, it is a GCP function. So hope it is clear for everyone that actually there are servers behind the serverless applications. One more comment, the serverless application is an application which uses one or more function as a service. So the serverless term is pretty bad, actually, because it should be rather called the server management less. So because the provider is managing the server, the container that is built for as a runtime environment by instead of you. And you can be focused only on providing the functionality. So for all those of you who are new to serverless world and want to take a look how does the lambda look from the inside without the need of creating the AWS account, there is the project called lambdashell.com. And there you can simply interact with the reverse shell to one of the lambda function instance. So let's quickly take a look what is there. So in the directory var task, you can find the source code of your lambda function. So here, this is the source code of the reverse shell which you are interacting with the lambda runtime environment. From the security point of view, the very interesting thing are the environment variables, because in the environment variables, you can find the AWS session token, AWS access key, and AWS secret access key. So all the three parts of the access to the role assigned to this lambda function. Let me give you an example. So for analyzing this example with the event-based lambda function, you you want your Lambda function that it will upload the report to one of your S3 bucket. But you have to authorize this Lambda function to be able to do it. So you can do it by assigning a role to the Lambda function, and Lambda function using this role is authorized to upload a file to the S3 bucket. And if you want to use this role outside of your Lambda function, then this AWS access key ID, AWS secret key, and AWS session token are required to assume this role outside of Lambda function and then interact with other AWS resources. All right, so time for the Bob's story. So the main character of this presentation is Bob, and Bob is a junior developer, and he's responsible for developing few serverless functions, and his boss gave him few challenges at the very beginning of his work in new company. And in many companies, there is still approach that if you are writing some code for internal usage only, so for example, some internal application, then it is not so strictly analyzed as all those applications which are exposed in the internet. And similarly here, his serverless functions need to be accessed only internally, so nobody reviewed his code. There is no static analyzer, there is no code review, anything like that. Furthermore, Bob uses the serverless framework, and it is another concept you have to understand. All those Lambda functions that you want to write and want to deploy them as one application. So for example, let's say your application is using 10 function as a service. Doing it manually, of course, it is possible, but there is a lot of work to do to deploy it and configure properly. So serverless framework is kind of abstraction layer that automates a lot of such manual work and basically makes a developer life easier. So it uses the local AWS access key to deploy the serverless application. It zips the Lambda source code and all the dependencies, as well as in the serverless YAML file, you can define in the YAML format all the configuration of your serverless application. So for example, that your application, let's say, requires some additional S3 bucket that has to be created, or some environment variables you have to specify there, which is used by your serverless application. All of it goes to the serverless.yaml file, and then as a one file, it is deployed to the AWS using the serverless framework. All right, so time for the first Bob challenge. And the challenge is the following: create a proof of concept application where internal candidates can submit their CVs. So Bob created the following application. It is in Polish, but the static content is not important here. The important thing is that an internal candidate can put the URL to his or her CV and then submit it to the database with all those applications. And once the candidate submitted, then the application replied with "Thank you, we will contact you soon." But if we do a very simple fuzzing, like adding the semicolon at the end of this link, you will see in the error message that actually we have the remote code execution. Why so? Because the application uses the curl program to download this doc file, and then it is piped to the cat doc file to make from the doc format, make it the plain text. However, if we put a semicolon here, then we can actually put an arbitrary command that will be executed on the Lambda environment. So, as you remember, what we can do is to simply display all the environment variables using the env command. So let's see. And then we see the wall of errors. However, at the end of the output, we can see the environment variables, including the AWS session token, AWS access key ID, and AWS secret key. So to visualize you what happened, the internal user can simply, by adding the semicolon and the comment env, can display the environment variable. So he's able to pull out the access keys and then use those access keys to access other AWS resources to which this role is authorized. Okay, hope it is clear. Now, if Bob, as you remember, uses the serverless framework, there is one of the big security problem. That is, serverless framework by default lets you create only one shared role per all Lambda functions. So if you deploy your serverless application that consists of 3 Lambda functions, but only one of it, this on the left side, only this Lambda function actually requires a lot of permissions related with DynamoDB and S3 services. However, the rest of 2 Lambda function doesn't require any permissions to DynamoDB or S3. But if you use the serverless framework default configuration, then you have to create the one role which is shared by all those 3 Lambda functions. So if you are able to see the environment variables in this Lambda function, then you have access to this role, which actually allows you for all those things. So what you can do is using the serverless IAM roles per function plugin, and it allows you basically literally the same what the name says. So you can create the role per function. So if this role requires high permissions, it receives high permissions, but those 2 requires almost no permissions, then you are creating the roles with almost no permissions. So how does it look for other function as a service? Is it the same? Not really. Here, I set up the netcat listener awaiting for upcoming connection from the GCP function. So what I did, I deployed the GCP function with the reverse shell, that it connects the reverse shell to my netcat listener, and then I can explore the runtime environment of the GCP function. So one of the interesting fact is every GCP function is running on the root user, what is pretty surprising, because Google, in my opinion, they have great know-how, and running anything on the root user, well, from the security point of view, mostly is prohibited. But here you can see that it is running on root. If we display the environment variables, then you can see that there's no such credentials that we can use the role of the of this particular GCP function. So assuming that you have remote code execution in one of your GCP function, as an attacker, what else you can do? Well, the sad truth is you can do a lot, because every GCP function by default is running under the service account role with the editor permissions. And editor permissions means that you have almost all privileges or permissions to all the resources that are in the particular GCP project. And usually when people are playing around with some GCP functions, they are deploying them in one project. So just as you just imagine that one of such very poorly written function is compromised, and then a user can pull out a special token of this editor role and then interact with all your resources under this GCP project. So how to pull out this token? As you could see, it is not hard-coded in the environment variables, because actually the GCP runtime environment, GCP function runtime environment uses the metadata service to access the token of this editor service account. So the metadata service is accessible under the special link local address that is 169.254.169.254. The link local address means it is not routable. It works only in one network segment. So if you have the reverse shell to the GCP function, then you can simply access this metadata service. However, if you are trying to access it outside of the GCP function, then sorry, but you will not access this. Only in cases if you have the server-side request forgery vulnerability. However, take a look that you have to also add a special header that is called the metadata flavor Google. And only if you add this header to the request to your metadata service, then you can access the token. Firstly, let's see the scope of the service account that is assigned to this particular GCP function. And you can see that you have in your scope the cloud platform, the cloud platform, what means you can interact with all the resources in this project. And using the endpoint token, you can pull out the bearer token from the metadata service, and then add this header to your HTTP request to other GCP endpoints, for example, to those responsible for storage service, to list all the storages in your GCP project, and to exfiltrate all the data. In Azure, situation is a little bit different. Azure functions are deployed under the logical app service, and all the Azure functions are sharing the same runtime environment. So here I deployed the 3 functions, and 2 of them are accessible via the HTTP endpoint. However, one of it is accessible via timer. So this is the function that is run every day at 10 p.m. Okay, so can we access this timer-based Azure function? Well, it is possible, and I will show you how. So how does it look like, the Azure function? How does it look like from inside? Here I have the app service called Azure Shell Demo, and the demo shell is the name of this particular Azure function. You can use in Azure, you can use Windows or Linux environment to host your functions. So here I have the, instead of reverse shell, I can put arbitrary command in the parameter of CMD. And if we go in the command dir home site www root, then you can see that every Azure function is on the same server, and the definition of it is in the separate directory. In the separate in every such directory, you can see the function JSON file where you can find the configuration regarding this particular demo shell Azure function. So, for example, how it is triggered. Is it triggered by time-based, or it is HTTP endpoint triggered? Things like this. And in the run CSX, you can see the source code of your Azure function. So in this case, when I'm displaying run CSX, it is the code that I'm using in this demo shell Azure function. So if we now use a command set that is in the Windows environment, it prints out the environment variables. You can see that all the hard-coded environment variables, of course, are accessible in plain text, but also you can see that there is the storage, the connection string to the storage account. It's here. So this is the connection string to your storage account, which is part of your app service that is hosting your Azure functions. So you can also access it, do similar stuff like in GCP, that you can exfiltrate the managed service identity token and then interact with other Azure resources. However, I want to show you the other way, how you can compromise the whole app service via just one Azure function. So here you can see that I'm trying to invoke the pwned function, but it wasn't so far deployed. So if you are trying to run it, then you will see the 404 error. Okay, it doesn't exist. But when I was able to print out the environment variables, I was able to print out also the connection string to the storage account, which is the Azure Shell Demo 81AC. And under this storage account, which you have to deploy to run those, to deploy the app service, then you can see that in this blob storage, you can see the folders of your Azure functions. Okay, so now if I have this access to this connection string, I can upload my own new Azure function, like for example the pwned Azure function. So the folder with the function JSON and the source code of my function. And once it is uploaded, you can immediately access it. So imagine that if you have the access to the storage, to the blob storage of your app service, then you actually can change the code of every function, deploy new function, and do whatever you want with the permissions that are assigned to this app service. So you have access to all the resource groups. And of course, the problem, the security problem, the biggest security problem in serverless world are the over-permissive roles. If you want to have to play more with reverse shell to each function, there is the open source project, which I highly recommend you. It is called the Serverless Prey. In my examples, I used this cheetah to run it, but you can try it also for Azure and AWS. So how can you defend against such attacks? First of all, follow the least privilege principle. Minimize all the permissions that are attached to your function as a service. If you are using the serverless IAM roles, the serverless framework, remember about using the serverless IAM roles per function plugin to be able to easily create new role per every function. One more thing, interesting thing to note is the API gateway request validation that you can find in the AWS. And basically, you can give there the definition of every parameter. So, for example, if you let's say there's the injection point in the parameter key sent to your function, and but you should expect only the integer value, but it is possible to give the whole payload to execute arbitrary command. If you use the gateway request validation, you can define that, hey, there should be only the integer value, and any other string values should be denied. And finally, you can also consider using a web application firewall that is accessible in all environments, in Azure, in GCP, in AWS. However, please remember that always WAF is only helpful if you optimize it and tune it. And no matter how you are trying to to limit potential threats, remember about testing your code, because sometimes the serverless functions can be accessed from the external of your network, not because they are exposed, but the other service is exposed. So, for example, it is behind some of your web application, or when you are, for example, uploading a file and it is automatically transferred via lambda function to your S3 bucket, for example. And so always test your code and verify all the potential attack vectors that can access your code. Great. Time for the second challenge that Bob received in his new job. And the challenge is the following. Files uploaded to the particular S3 bucket should be automatically renamed with some prefix. The task is the following. So once the test new PNG file is uploaded to one of your S3 bucket, then it invokes the event. And the event is basically the JSON file where you can see such information like to what bucket this file was uploaded, what is the name of the file, or what is the size of this file. The event triggers the Lambda environment, which invokes the Lambda function code, and it should automatically change the name of this file to add the prefix scanme. Bob, like many other junior developers, instead of writing his own code from the scratch, he started from searching through the Stack Overflow and npm JS repository. And luckily, he found in the npm JS repository the package called S3 rename. Analyzing the usage of this package, it seems that it is using exactly what Bob's looking for. So it takes as the parameter name of the bucket, name of the old key, and then name of the new key, and basically renames the S3 objects. Well, there are only 53 weekly downloads, which is small, but who cares? This code can maybe help Bob, so Bob gave it a shot. So this is the very simple code that Bob used. So basically, he's importing the S3 rename package. And then from the event JSON file, he is extracting the S3 bucket name to which the file was uploaded. And then from the same event JSON file, he extracts the object name, so the name of the file, and then create the new name by adding the prefix scan. And this magic is done by the S3 rename package. So Bob did it, and surprise, surprise, there are totally no errors, and the file was added. The name of the file was changed with the name with the prefix. So Bob was super happy. Awesome, no errors. It does exactly what it should do. But if Bob analyzes the source code of the S3 rename package, he would see that there's the code of obfuscated code. And basically, this obfuscated code is responsible for the following. It verifies if there is the environment variable called AWS Access Key ID. And if so, then the value of this variable is sent to this folder in the key parameter on 8000 port. And you probably are not surprised that I'm the owner of this server. And once the S3 rename package is invoked, then it extracts the environment variable to my server. So I did this research by uploading the malicious package to npm.js repository just for the purpose of this presentation. It was accessible for around 1 month. And after 1 month, I had more than 500 downloads of this package. And as you can expect, I received not only Bob's AWS Access Key ID. The reason why I'm taking only AWS Access Key ID without the secret key and the session token is the fact that I wanted to just to see if it is possible and people are running blindly the code. And yes, that is true. People are running blindly code without verifying what is it doing. And with only access key ID, I cannot harm anyone. Okay, so how can you defend? The thing you should know about AWS Lambda is that it is running outside of your virtual private cloud, so outside of your VPC. To run it inside of your VPC, you have to do it explicitly, and then you can put it in the private subnet, so you can control any outbound traffic by security groups. By default, any attempts to exfiltrate the key outside of the Lambda, of course, is possible. And if you close the outbound connections to the internet, but you still need your Lambda function to interact with some of your internal resources, then you can use the VPC endpoint policies that your traffic will not go outside of your AWS infrastructure. And similarly, you can do the similar concepts in Azure and GCP. All right, time for the third and the last challenge. The Lambda function should create a new entry in DynamoDB. So this is also a very, very popular problem, which I can observe in the real life, that people are basically hard coding the credentials as the environment variable. Unfortunately, still a lot of developers believe things that only people who has only people who have permissions to lambda function can access those credentials. So what a big deal. But actually, it is not true. There are other ways. How can you access those environment variables, hard-coded environment variables? So if Bob, as you remember, uses the serverless framework, then all the Lambda source code, the zip of Lambda source code and the serverless configuration YAML file, they are uploaded to the S3 bucket, to the newly created S3 bucket. And permissions to access the S3 bucket are very, very popular, very common, and usually people are, most of users are allowed to read objects in S3 buckets under their AWS account. As you can see in the bucket policy of such automatically created bucket, automatically created by serverless framework, then there's only added the policy to not to allow the HTTP connection, which basically doesn't make sense in most cases because you cannot run it, you cannot access it via HTTP usually, but there are no limitations regarding your internal users access this bucket. So in fact, most of your AWS users will be able to see the content of this bucket. And if so, then they have access to all the versions of this serverless application. And in every version of this application, they can verify the YAML file, the configuration file in which they can see the hard-coded credentials. And also from the attacker's perspective, it is also worth verifying also the older versions because they usually still there, but bigger security problems are usually at the beginning. And developers very often forget about it. So the mitigation for this threat is using encryption in your secret values. So you can use the secret manager or SSM parameter store in AWS, and then you can refer to them in this way. So in the configuration file, you will see only this line instead of the plain code, plain text password to dbpass. Okay. And in Azure or GCP, there are also dedicated vaults or vault or manager, secret manager to store securely your secrets. And at the end, last but not least, when I'm doing my cloud security assessment, I can very, very often see some resources like functions that they weren't used for 3 years, for example. They are actually they are there, they are deployed, ready to use. However, they are not used for many years, because they were part of the old project, which is already dead, or it was just the part of some testing, creating some proof of concept, and they are all there. So for the attacker, it is also a great way to access your AWS kingdom by trying to find such insecure points to your cloud security world environment. So remember to regularly audit your cloud infrastructure, and if there are any not used resources, that should be marked as a finding, and they should be removed immediately. And in the end, at the end, to give you some takeaways, please remember about the OWASP serverless code. This is the application. This is the serverless application that is ready, that is waiting for you to be hacked, and you can deploy it on your own server or on your own AWS environment, or you can use the already deployed serverless code. So there's no need to create or register your AWS account. And gaining an access to your access key is actually just the beginning from the attacker's perspective. What you can do to leverage your privileges. So, for example, starting from the lower per privileged user to the administrator user of your whole AWS account, then you can see my old presentation when I was focused only on the next phases of the cyber kill chain, not on the gaining the access keys. And basically, that's all from my side. If you can share your feedback regarding your presentation, what do you think about it? Did you learn something new, or did you miss something? Would you like to see some improvements in this presentation? Please let me know. I will very appreciate any feedback from you. Also, if you have any questions which you would like to stay in contact with me, then feel free to contact me on my mail, Twitter, or LinkedIn. That's all from my side. I hope you liked it. Let me know.
Pawel, thank you very much. This was great, and this was hard. Next time we will need you in the beginning of the show, because it takes time to focus and it takes time to grasp all the bits and pieces of information you're sharing. Thank you very much for bringing it up and for being with us today. I see we have questions already.
Hmm?
There are people who do not believe that you really created that S3 rename npm package.
Okay.
Did you?
So yeah, I created this S3 rename package, and it was accessible in the April of this year.
Okay. So everything you did, you basically just created it, submitted it, and then collected telemetrics to prove the point.
Any problems. I even
Is it
respond.
me? We're
What is
losing
the?
you.
Can you hear me still?
Yes, now we can. Could you please repeat?
Yeah. So replying your question, yes, I was the author of this S3 rename package, and I wanted to verify not only if it is possible because I or the community, but actually nobody through whole month contacted me that something is not okay with that. There's
Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Pavel, we are having trouble hearing you. It may be because of a poor connection. Let's try to turn camera off. Yeah. Okay. So we lost you. Let's wait for a few. Друзі, це ж його ковбасить, не мене. Бо вас я внизу під шоу бачу нормально.
Ні, у нас все шики-блеск.
Отакий от у сусідів інтернет, коротше.
Ну, добре, що це трапилось вже в кінці.
В Європі, розумієш?
Розумію.
О, he's back. Hey, Pawel, what was that? Special services?
I don't know.
Polish intelligence has cut you off. Not to
Probably.
not to leak state secrets. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the proof of concept project, right? You try to see whether it will be there, the feedback, because everyone is saying, yeah, it's open source. The million eyes can come and check it, but in fact, for a month, no one really gives a damn.
That's right. And if anyone still doesn't believe that it is possible, then the best way is not to discuss, but do it.
To do it yourself, yeah.
Upload it, and then you have, if you want to have some help, how to deploy it, any problems, then I can just reach me out and I will help you.
Cool, thank you. It's good when Bob is one developer in a team. What if the team has 200 developers and 500 microservers?
Oh, well, that's a big challenge of managing it. Sure thing. I don't have the one best solution for you because it was just that I wanted to show you some problems in the serverless applications, not rather best practices in managing the big projects. So I will not give you the answer. What is the best way to managing and the environment not involved in managing developer teams. So sorry, cannot answer this question.
I think in somewhere in scaling in automation, but you will have to deal with it yourself. Yeah, there is no silver bullet. Next question.
I don't know. Again, there are some problems.
Yeah, we're losing you from time to time.
And via the presentation, during the presentation.
No, everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. Just now it started. Okay, next question. First, thanks a lot. It's awesome. What about specific security in Knative serverless for Kubernetes? Oh, the internet connection is really unstable. Yeah. At least we have this screen frozen on a nice smile. Pawel gave us.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's weird. But okay. We still have questions, Pawel. We will need to struggle through that. So the question is, what about specific security in Knative? Serverless for Kubernetes.
Again, it's I'm not an expert regarding Kubernetes, so I don't want to give you any special mitigations regarding Kubernetes, especially in the Knative. Sorry, it wasn't the part which I was researching.
Yeah. but it's really cool that we have this kind of questions, because the talk gives impression that you did a lot of work, but we are like pen testers. We hack stuff, not all of it at once.
Yeah, well, I totally I understand, because for me it is actually natural, the environment of pen testers. Of course, I'm working with many developers, but mostly with penetration testers, because this is what I'm doing on my daily basis. However, what I see a big gap currently regarding whole cloud security world is that the security folks very often they treat as a like a magic box of the cloud world, that oh no, I'm focused on security, not on cloud. In next 5-10 years, it wouldn't be possible to say that you are focused only on the on-premise infrastructure, not on cloud, because the cloud migration will be on totally more advanced level. So if I can encourage you, that you all should just have at least the fundamental understanding of the cloud concepts.
Of course, yeah. Especially after 2020, when moving to the cloud has accelerated dramatically. Most probably the infrastructures we will test in the nearest future will be all cloud. Okay, an off-topic question. I've heard you are a contributor to OWASP Mobile Security Testing Guide project and a member of OWASP Wrocław. Can you tell a little about it? Please, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I'm still part of the OWASP Poland chapter. We divided into even smaller pieces like OWASP Wrocław or OWASP Warsaw, because we want to have this local in the time that it was still possible to see each other in the face-to-face. Then we arranged such meetings in OWASP Wrocław, and I was the person who is responsible for arranging those meetings, and using the OWASP Poland chapter, I had whole support regarding the OWASP talk on those meetings. And regarding the mobile security testing guide, that was a big adventure for me. And also I want to encourage all of you to contribute to the OWASP project, because some of them are really cool. Regarding mobile security testing guide, it is actually now kind of standard, especially so of the popular OWASP ASVS.
And he's gone again. Okay. Home Alone.
Можемо з Житомиру вам трохи пакетів з трафіком відправити, якщо потрібно.
Богдане, зробіть щось з польським інтернетом. Okay, Pavel. We got 8 minutes.
If I can finish regarding the OWASP MSTG,
sure.
I want to encourage you all to contribute to the OWASP project, because for me that was the first project and I was really enjoyed it. And after committing, I've not so many lines, but I committed like, I don't know, maybe 30 commits of more than 1,000 lines. Then you got a top contributor, and in all the next level of the document, your name is in the beginning of it. So I believe that it can be encouraging other of you to get involved to this OWASP project.
Yeah, and I assure you that it gives an impression when put into a resume. It's definitely so.
You can also get to know a well-known and very smart people. Then after many years, even if you are still not involved in this project, I still meet those people from the MSTG Slack channel, and we still have contact,
Cool.
which is awesome.
We have many words of thanks in the chat, and there is a question
Perfect.
that
Thank you very much.
there is a question that you are free not to answer. So, was it legal publishing a malicious npm in the wild, which leads to a AWS key leakage? It's not, first of all, AWS key leakage. It's just a key ID leakage as a proof of concept, as far as I get it.
Well,
right?
was it legal? Well, I still here. I'm not arrested. I didn't even have a call from police. However, regarding this key leakage, recently I made a research of exposing the AWS access keys in the public GitHub repository, and to verify how the Amazon reacts on it. So Amazon started Amazon started to give you additionally, which is super interesting because they are automatically add to the compromised user the special quarantine policy that is blocking some actions. And 2 days after the exfiltrating exposing the keys in the public repository, I got even a call from AWS support. So nice. Then in the logs, I was able to see that this support is analyzing what I was doing in the recent times under my account. So they told me, hey, recently they were spinned up 3 EC2 instances in this particular region. Was it yours? If not, then you have a problem. So I was totally in shock. So replying to your question, nobody said to me, hey, you did the research by exposing your keys and now you should, I don't know, pay for it or whatever. But they rather tried to help me.
Cool. Next question, what cloud service do you prefer for yourself?
Oh, you mean particular service or the service provider?
I guess the platform, yeah.
For me, well, I still have like the most of my projects that I'm doing, I work with AWS still. Okay. However, the Azure, I can see that it is really, it is more and more popular. Even now, the Azure is planning to open a new data center in Poland. So, naturally, there are deals with the local companies that they want to work with it. There is a good price in some services comparing to other providers. So yeah, mostly AWS, but also I'm playing around with Azure. With GCP, there are rather several projects only.
Cool. So it's all platform independent because yeah, the architecture is basically very similar, and the access model is it's classic.
Yeah, and the approach to many of the services are very very similar.
Sure.
Using yeah.
And security principles, I guess, are the same. Just least privilege, compartmentalize scopes, and yeah, you'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are, of course, the differences, those teeny differences that I hope I pointed them in my presentation, some of them at least. So.
Yeah, that was, yeah, again, I have to recap that. It was hardcore. It has to go. It has to go in the morning because now we are too worn off to get it all from the first time. But fortunately, we will have chance to revisit it. on the record. So if there are no more questions, we will thank Pawel for this awesome talk.
Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy
very
your
much, Pawel.
Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, thanks.
See you. Hope
Stay
you
safe.
soon in real life.